Hi, thanks for joining me for some more content. This week I'm chatting to the ever-pleasant Jamie Coupe, frontman of Maggie Cassidy. So Maggie Cassidy are a band that I've done some work with in the past. We've done a few singles together and it's always been a real pleasure to work with them. It's slightly more hi-fi pop rock than my normal fare, so it's always an exciting challenge to kind of try and make things sound as pretty and in your face as possible. So we basically skip a lot of the traditional Q&A during this podcast. Just turned into a bit of a rambling chat between a couple of pals that hadn't caught up in a little while. So they have a new release out as of early August. It's called Life is Beautiful. It's produced by the brilliant Seb Barlow. I didn't work on this one, but there's a couple of singles out beforehand that you'll hear a little clip of, and I believe we've got another one coming up that's coming out in October, which is a really, really great song. I won't give too much away in case I get in trouble. So yeah, I'm going to cut the chat now. So Jamie Coupe, singer-songwriter and front person of Maggie Cassidy. This conversation starts with probably the most important question you'll ever hear on this podcast. Without further ado, take it away.
How's the cat, most importantly?
So I've got two cats. One of them kept me up all night.
I love it.
Absolutely shocked because she, for some reason, was just fucking screaming at me all night and wanting to sit on my face and all sorts of...
pleasure, isn't it?
Yeah, you know. The other one's perfectly fine, just does her own thing, just, you know. But yeah, so I'm a bit bleary-eyed because I just didn't get any sleep.
Jesus.
Yeah, a bit rubbish. How's everything at your end?
Cool, yeah, I'm here in France at the moment. So I've managed to start working online pretty much full-time writing songs for people. So
cool.
Really helps with band stuff as well. Just have time. And again, not doing too well myself. I managed to force some wax into my eardrum. So I've got this lovely floating thing.
Oh, no.
Hopefully get it suctioned out and figure out all that in France.
Yeah. Yeah, how come you're in France?
So my girlfriend is French, so we were living in Watford working, and then pretty much as the pandemic came, we were in lockdown and we decided to come back here because, again, I can work online now and she's going to come back here and study. So I think I'd rather go to the beach, write songs in France and eat food.
Well, than be in Watford.
No, of course not. Don't tell them that.
So, tell me about the songwriting stuff. How have you gotten into that and what kind of stuff are you writing?
So it's a website called Fiverr. So is this part of are we recording now?
Yeah,
is this all
can be, yeah.
Perfect, yeah. Cool.
Bit of free-flowing stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think, why not? But it's a website called Fiverr, so I probably joined about a year and a half ago, and it's essentially like window shopping for songwriting. So you'll walk past my portfolio, you'll see a picture of me, video explaining my services, some of the stats, anything you can do to kind of bring people in. And then they'll pick a package. It might be just lyrics, it might just be helping with melody or helping with even all the way up to like vocal stem recording and stuff. So when I first started, you get nothing pretty much for a couple of weeks. But then over a year or so, I built it up to a point where I'm getting messages every couple of days and there's a kind of flow, like start of the month, it's hectic. So I don't really have a weekend until like the last 5 to 10 days of the month, but that works really well. So, I mean, they have a lot of cool kind of tools to talk about not burning out. I mean, something you'd understand as well, for sure, because you're working for yourself and you're running sessions and you've got a life. So if you're tired and stuff and you come into work, it's like, okay, how do I work today? Or how do I make sure I'm giving the right prices to the right people? But then some people come in and they want like full vocal recording, writing, lyric, PDF, and vocal stems for $50. And I think you just have to be kind and say, maybe I would have done that when I started out, but I'm trying to get it. But it's not crazy. It's not crazy in terms of money, but it's just a dream. Like, especially in a time like this, I've completely fallen on wonderful times. Like, I'm so lucky because of everything that's going on. Like, there's absolutely nothing I can complain about. I can't even complain about my ear infection because it was from swimming in the sea.
So yeah, I know a few people that have started off doing mixes and masters on Fiverr.
Yes.
And
how did they find it? Was it good for them?
I don't think it's the same as I don't think you can ask the same rates that you can as just like someone that's developed a name, but you definitely start building a portfolio, and I think that's kind of the key thing. Same with Reddit. A lot of people just put things up on Reddit, like go to like Reddit music production,
Seriously?
Reddit songwriting, Reddit mixing kind of thing, and then be like, yeah, I'm here. I do a couple for free and see how you get on, that kind of thing. And I know people that have done like, ended up just doing mastering like as a side hustle, just
It's
on Reddit.
really good, isn't it? I know some dudes that run it out of their studio in London and stuff. And
Just doing EDM stuff. Like,
yeah.
It's really cool.
It's definitely, definitely.
It's there's all these kind of little nooks and crannies of the internet where you can build your name, build some bunts, all that kind of stuff.
Have you explored it? Because I mean, I know for a fact that you've been a very busy man. I hear good things. About the people you've worked with. But do you explore those kind of corners of the internet as well? For stuff.
I don't
you
think
keep it chill with your tea and cats.
Yeah, I don't think I do. I've been so to get where I am today. My first few years were pure hustle, doing anything I could, and trying to build my skill set and build a portfolio and all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of done that bit. And
how did you do that? Sorry, out of interest, because I only met you when I'd already heard like the Creeper stuff. I mean. And then Boston Manor as well, like guys that we knew and stuff. But for
me, I found a rehearsal space I could turn into a studio, and all the bands that would come to the rehearsal room, I would offer to do cheap demos and kind of built it up that way.
Cool.
And a friend of mine kind of just said, find a band you like, find a band you kind of believe in, and put everything into that, and use it as your calling card. So you do a good job of it. Someone else hears it, you get another record. And then it kind of builds, kind of snowballs.
And was that a case of like you found a band and you were like knowing it would be your passion project and being the big thing for you? Like, did you lower the rate, or was it like you put in extra work? Is it to make it kind of like your?
It's kind of a mixture of all those things. I think I didn't spread myself thin on passion projects, but I found a couple I really liked and
that's
kind of
smart though.
Time
I think
into.
that's just smart.
I'm not really. The thing is, I'm not really sure any of them actually paid off, but they they didn't pay off in the way that I anticipated. But then a record I did without really kind of knowing it was going to be the thing that got me more work, like
that's the way.
Landscapes and and Boston Manor's first EP. Those two got me loads of work. I still get work from records like that, which are like 6, 7, 8 years ago. So that's cool.
But you do a job well, and it speaks for itself. I think if you have a few of those things, because I guess what you're saying as well is that even those passion projects didn't necessarily pay off directly. You were doing it. You were practicing. You were learning. You were
exactly.
And I find that like even though I'm writing lyrics for someone in India for their pop song that wants to sound like Rita Ora, I find myself writing it every day. Or 3-4 times a week.
But it's flexing that muscle until it gains kind of mass.
And how do you see it? Because I know you write as well. Like you're very humble about the things you do go up to, but having spent time with you, so like it's always interesting to see how people think of it. Because some people say writing's a muscle, some people say writing is like a dirty tap. You hear a few things, but where do you sit on it?
I don't think I'm like a great songwriter, but I do think I'm capable of being. If I'm in a room with someone, I can kind of help shape things in a direction that is maybe more focused or more kind of like on the nose for what they're after. If I do songwriting purely, it just comes out exactly the same as all my other songs. I need someone else there to
put their kind of string into it.
In fact, perfect scenario is someone has an idea and I can then jump on and help develop it.
That's what you do, though. I feel like I had like a really good way of thinking about it is the creator and the analyst. Like if you're creating in a room, you let that creator scream and shout and put everything down, and you don't get the analyst in until the creator's finished doing what he's doing. But it sounds like you're amazing at that second part, which is the picking apart, the objective, the subjective as well, mixing that and just making something better. That's what a producer does, I think. If he's in his right mind.
I haven't done an awful lot of songwriting with other people. Is something I've always been more the like, hey, and maybe we can put a harmony here kind of thing, producer. But the songwriting bit, I've only had 6, 7, 8, 9 sort of sessions actually sitting in a room as a writer with another artist.
What were they like? I know it's hard to broad stroke.
I mean, they were all kind of different, but everyone has their workflow, and mine is I'm very much like, I will throw as much shit on the wall as I can until something sticks, and then I'll run with it, and then I'll be objective and be like, could it be better?
That's like creating and analysing, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
you've got to be smart with that.
Yeah, but some other people, some guys I've done a lot of writing with in the past, like they like to brood and meditate over every single little bit.
Oh wow!
And it's so like contrasting. I mean, I think we did some good writing together, but it was like tough. The songs were really good at the end, but getting there was like, fucking hell, this is really knackering, yeah. And everyone felt that. It wasn't a case of like, I left the room being like, God, those guys are a nightmare. I think everyone left the room going, God, everyone in the room's a nightmare.
That was
We're all a nightmare. Yeah.
How many was it? 3, something like that?
3, yeah, wow. 3.
Yeah. I find 2 is the sweetness, but then actually with 3, like you said, if you can handle it, you might actually come out with something a lot stronger. It's kind of like magic, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, the last songwriting session I had was 6 or 7 of us in a room.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but that came out really well.
Did it?
It came out really, really well.
I have interest. How did they do that? Was it like, even though there was 6, 7 in there, was it really 3, 4? Or was it 1 or 2? Or was it kind of...
I think everyone kind of, after the first few hours, everyone took their role. Yes. So I sometimes do sessions with another writer. So like writer, and then artist kind of thing. Cool. And he took the role of like, right, I'm going to focus on sort of dealing with a singer and working with a singer, and I kind of started, and I started thinking more like broad stroke, like how would the like dynamic of the song change? How would the sort of like what would come next kind of thing? And I think between, it's probably me, the other writer, the singer, and then everyone else was the kind of their own musician, thinking about their own parts, thinking about what they could do to benefit the song. So there was kind of like 3 core writing. Yeah, thinking melody structure and lyrics, and then another 3 or 4 thinking, what could I do in terms of beats?
That's almost like the atomic family for bands, isn't it? You got the guys that do the
something like that. Yeah,
they got the songs, and then everyone else. Like the thing is, what I've found is what the most successful sessions and writing and stuff that we do, because we're gearing up for another kind of batch, and it's having everyone have their say though. Even if someone only throws in their 5 to 10%, you've got to listen to them. Because it might be absolute gold.
I don't think a lot of people external to the world of writing or production understand how you agree who did what, and how short everyone's memories are when it comes to it.
God.
So how do you, if you're writing in a room, say with Maggie Cassidy, you're writing the 4 of you. It's 4 of you, isn't it? No, 5 of you.
5. Yeah, it was 4 actually when we came in. I believe it. No, it was 5. It was 5.
No, it's 5. Yeah.
We dipped it out. Actually, probably the best way of answering your question, because the guys we're brothers, so we split everything. Even though
you do an even split.
Yeah, even though because I admit to them as well, like it just happens that I sing. Like I was talking to Pete, our drummer. It just happens that he plays drums. It's not like we are these entities, but we understand our roles. So technically I could be horrible, and I know examples. Like I could lord it over them because I write. And even the ideas I'm sent, if I don't like it, or if I have a bad day, if I decided to be an absolute prim posy, then I'd be like, I don't want to write. But no, I give my best to every idea because it means a lot to the guys. So, but we split everything for sure. But it is funny because I work as well. I write for other people and stuff. Like, but I tend to do it with people I trust for the exact reason that you said. So there's 2 ways of doing it. Either you just work with someone you trust and you go 50-50, because I tend to find people that they cover my blind spots, like high level production, high level mixing, mastering, because I can comp and edit and vocally produce some stuff, but I work with people that are strong like that, and we just 50-50 it. They're like brothers. I have a couple of guys that I do that with. But Taylor Swift has the best method, which I think is just literally like we've done. You just bang a mic in the room, because sound can't lie, because you hear all these stories of like, oh, someone's in a big session, and I guess it spreads from the bad stigma that comes from someone listening to Work or a Beyonce track and going, there were 17 writers, and they complain like that's just the reality, because it's so valuable that you would want to contribute, and there's constantly like sessions where people are smiling, having a great time, they leave, and then their agents and managers get in touch and go, well, actually, there wasn't this the thing. We want that 2-3%. Actually, that verb was changed, that pronoun. So honestly, that was a long-winded way of saying work with people you trust or people that you kind of respect, because even the small dealings I've had in what would be the commercial writing world, it could get pretty nasty. But I'm blessed to work with guys like Luke Potter and Ed Stokes and the guys in my band, and even guys I had to write with in bands. I tend to be generous, like Liam Crombie as well, who is funny. He actually featured on some other stuff as well. He swung by a studio because I know he sent us some stems. Yeah. Absolute hero. Like he was I had to tell you a story actually, because he was in the vocal booth, and obviously monitoring stuff. I'm really delicate about monitoring. Want to get the right performance. And he goes, "No, that's all right. Don't need any ears, mate." Because he absolute pipes, and he was singing this like AC/DC like 5 octaves above me, going nah, like blowing the glass. And he's like, "Yeah, I think he's all right for monitoring." But with him, for example, like first of all, that was a surreal experience, because for me, we got into a session, we wrote Friends, which we did with you, sir.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. That was, again, that's kind of changed a few things for us. And with him, it was 50-50 because we were a little bit late because of getting to Romper tonight there. And he kind of had this track. And again, like you were saying, meeting someone that was your hero, I kept embarrassing him with it. But going like giving and taking in terms of how to write, and then as far as I was concerned, the value that he brought, and I just said 50-50. And again, discussing these splits on here is maybe it's not the right thing to do, but for me, I think it might be helpful to people listening to see kind of
I mean that's the thing with this kind of stuff. Like it could be perceived like you're kind of airing your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
It never really feels like that. Like one day it swings in your direction a little bit more, but you still take the 50-50. Another day you do a bit less, but you get the 50-50. And I think that is a nice way to work. The last few sessions I've done, it's basically anyone in the room split. That's it. And
it, again, with good faith and people you trust, working like that does well, because you hear the horror stories of someone swings by, falls asleep in the corner and wants 20%. Which is not the case. But then like a good analogy I found as well, like in terms of long-term business, it's a guy called Jack Ma who runs, I think his name, I could have got that horribly wrong, it's probably the English translation, but he runs Alibaba in China, and he does a lot of deals with people. And of course, he is the magnate, he's the beast, he's the bomb, he makes the deals happen, but he always gives the other person 51%. Because his it's almost like Confucian the way he does it. It's like I'd rather lose 1% now to have 49% of the next 10 deals, because this person feels valued. So it's not to say I did that with Liam or with Simon who wrote stuff for us.
No. But I think that's a really, really, really good point. And on the flip side of it, I've worked on sessions before where no one discussed the writing element of it during the project, and then almost a year later, we have to get that stuff sorted. And some of the stuff that came out through that session was nasty.
Is it horrible? I was interested. So go through it as much as you can. I'd be interested.
As much as I can. I remember, so basically it's me and 2 others did basically work together on maybe like 40% of a record, 30%, 40% of a record as like a team. And we sat down and kind of bashed out the details, and it was fairly amicable. I'm like you. I'm probably more than fair a lot of the time. I'm kind of like, well, I did this, but ultimately I wouldn't have been able to do any of it without your genesis or your seed idea. So with that in mind, I'm going to suggest I take, fractional compared to you who did more. Like, I think that's a reasonable way to work. Also, I'm getting, normally, if I'm producing as well as writing, I'm getting paid on the front end.
As you should.
They're not. Yeah. So they need... Often a musician needs more, as much as they can on the back end, in order to make sure that one day they actually get some money in the bank, because we all know that labels and so on and so forth they're not really interested in making sure an artist can live or survive.
Sadly,
So, but following on from that experience, we got the odd message where it was, oh, well, member X feels that they did this. What do we do?
Yeah.
It's staying super cool and super nice, because no one,
definitely,
unless you're a nutter, no one wants to fall out over this stuff.
No.
Everyone wants to bend a little bit. Quite often I would just say, what's this argument worth to you? You're going to be so stressed out. and it's going to really colour everything, would you give up 3 or 4 or 5% of it just to not have the argument? And that might sound too passive, but
no, I think it's actually smart, because if you think about it, like you just said, you alluded to, and people again trying to air the dirty laundry, like what a band makes is very minimal. So if you're willing to break up a band or break up a production relationship for what might turn out to be 20 quid, you've got to look at yourself, I think. But staying in the game, like you said, because you've got other stuff going on apart from this particular session, staying in the game and staying in the long term, it's going to win you a lot more friends.
Yeah, for sure.
It's even like, I guess, it's funny, I heard Guy Ritchie talking about it, because as a director, he says, often I'll actually pick people that I can see myself enjoying being around for a year.
It makes sense.
Or, you know, because you filming press tour, it says, you know, sure, I might pick a better actor, but I don't want to be around people that I don't want to be around. And it's...
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I would be an idiot if I didn't think that people have chosen to work with me over another producer because they preferred to be around me rather than I was better than them.
I think you have
happened.
such a beautiful kind of spot and spirit and Daly. Oh, hi. Love Dave. But like, yeah, I think it's funny, like you come out of the ranch and you feel like you don't feel like you've really been working, but then you listen back and the commitment that everyone puts in, the product's always great for us.
Thanks, man.
I think. And it's the way you talk, and I feel some producers very much we just see the back of their head for 2 weeks, and that's fine.
It's really easily done. Really easily done.
Yeah. We don't take it personally. But yeah, working with you was great because we actually had the time to just, like, I was feeling pretty crap at points, and it was never a sense of pressure. It was like, oh, we'll do it later, and brought the best out of what we could get that day. And then as well, I actually think we had a couple of candid conversations about anxiety or mental health. Or
yeah, absolutely.
That was on the dead. And that's something that I've always talked about, and I'll always talk about it when it's not cool. I talk about it now when it is very cool, and then when it's not cool again, or hopefully it becomes part of our vocabulary in the same way we have physical health. I'll still be talking about it because, like yourself, you're brave enough to talk about your experiences, and then it opens up that conversation, which I think is very important to still have.
I can only really focus on my experiences in the industry I work in, but it's music is such a weird. It kind of destroys your self-image very quickly. It can really get in your head very quickly. So I think the conversation about, sustaining positive mental health and being aware of not only your own but others is super valuable. And I think it will continue. I think so. I mean, I've definitely had the experience of working with bands who have kind of on their Instagram said, everyone talk about your mental health, it's so valuable, and then been like, what do you mean you're not going to work until midnight? Like,
yeah.
That isn't necessarily a critique, it's just that we need to keep being better at it. Like, we need to keep understanding that stuff. And
like we wouldn't miss lunch for 2 weeks because we're just incapable of it, right? But I think we're very capable of, like you're saying, of kind of pushing and crushing our well-being. You don't have to call it mental health. You don't have to attach that weird stigma that's kind of reversed itself. But just well-being in general, physiological well-being, it comes as a package, and I think you understand that. And I think the people we get along with understand that. And I think in the band as well, we have to be careful. Like, I just went through quite a manic patch, but I got a lot of stuff done. And I think understanding where your mania and when you're you need to return to baseline and just let it chill. Otherwise, you start to feel that thing under your eye. Or
the twitch, the twitch.
I think you had the twitch.
I had the twitch real bad last week, yeah.
It's killer. It's killer. Yeah, because when you messaged me last time, you sounded like you were really in the waves of something.
Oh, my God, yeah. So we were supposed to do this maybe 10 days ago or 8 days ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and essentially coming back off lockdown, I had a session straight away. Well, we opened on July the 1st.
What was that like? Sorry, not the direct.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was super cool, yeah. It's very hard to social distance consistently in our studio.
Yes.
If we did everything in the live room, it'd be a piece of cake. But obviously, we have shared spaces and we have the control room's not as big as the live room and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So I did a little, for want of a better word, a Ranch Productions Corona policy document and sent it on to bands and stuff like that, just saying like, this is what we expect from you. If you're cool with that, everything's going to be cool.
Yeah.
The first session back was a breeze, an amazing band called Social Contract, who are
cool.
They're just a really cool like indie rock. They're all metalheads, but they're playing indie rock. So imagine what that sounds like. Super good.
Weird world, isn't it?
But that was pretty chill. And then I jumped straight in with my friend and long-term sort of like working partner, Joe Appleford. And we've been working on his record since January. And obviously with a big break in lockdown, we were eager to kind of jump on the vocals and production. But it was a really great session. But it was 8 days, and every day we worked on our song. So we had the drums, the bass, the rhythm down, and then we spent a day doing vocals, additional production. So I found myself just at the end of a long day of concentrating and being creative.
Yes.
After 3 months of not doing that, just fucked. There's no other word for it. Just absolutely brain dead.
But the point there is that, like, myself, I have some form of understanding of what you're doing. I'm not a producer, but like, to put that in physical terms, that's like sleeping for 3 months and then trying to deadlift your personal best. And it's like, I am pretty tired. But because it's in our head and it's in our wheelhouse, like you said, bands like, oh, dude, you got to grind, you got to work till midnight. It's like, whoa. No, get up early, have a nice tea, and you'll work better throughout the day. Exactly,
yeah. You'll get better results not doing that bullshit. But so I did. That was 8 days of that, and then so my last day of the session was Friday, just gone. Today is Sunday. So yesterday, I did not do. I played Pokemon Go from my sofa all day.
I respect that, and I respect this is part of this whole well-being thing. I respect that you say that and you tell people when you take a day off, because I think it's really important if there's like a young producer listening here. Like, I was talking to a drummer actually the other day, he's a really young guy, and I was like, look, it's not about doing 7 days a week. It's about doing 5 days a week for 3 years or something, giving yourself that chance to catch up on things.
I certainly learned that the hard way back in my formative years doing this stuff.
You've got to go a bit mad though, I think.
Well, I remember doing in my old studio, I did something like 14 or 16 days without a day off. And back then I would work 10 till 10 every day. This sounds like a weird brag, and this is not a weird brag.
It's not,
this is a warning story, yeah. And I got back on I believe it was a Friday, the day I finished, and I got back and was like, woo, yeah. We had some dinner, we had some chocolates, we had, me and my partner had a proper, nice night. And I woke up at 3 a.m, vomited everywhere, sort of tripped back to bed, woke up at 8, went to clean my teeth and was drooling toothpaste out of the side of my mouth.
What?
And I looked and my face had completely sunk on one side, like I'd had a stroke.
Like a stroke?
Yeah, it was actually, I went to the hospital like immediately, and the doctor was just so blasé. He was like poking my face, like going, it could be a stroke. He's like, it's not a stroke. Sorry, it's not a stroke. It could be a serious neurological condition, or it could be like shingles. But I don't know. Go to your GP on Monday. But I did go to my GP, and it's called Bell's palsy, and it's basically just a viral infection. But you basically get it when you're burned out, when you're knackered, and your immune system drops. You can catch this virus.
Yeah, it's like bringing the walls of the fortress down to pebbles, isn't it?
Yeah. So ever since then, I've had reduced feeling in the side of my face. So
you're kidding?
That's my scar from burning myself out. Yeah.
Did the young producers just hear that?
I hope so.
You may give yourself a stroke if you create too hard.
You will definitely freak yourself out. I'll tell you that for nothing.
But I think there is that balance, though. Like you said, it's being smart, and I guess, were you working with someone else at the time to like check you, or were you just going solo?
I worked at this. Yeah, it was basically in a practice room. So the dude that ran the practice room was there all the time. But he was kind of like me back then. He would just turn up at 10, stay till 10, head home. But I mean, his was slightly less. His was slightly less kind of like creative.
Yes,
he was basically just making sure the practice room ran, and would sit and watch TV or drink a beer or whatever. It's much more chilled kind of like lifestyle, which he had earned already. He was already in his 50s.
But that's the point, I think, is that if anything, we don't want to discourage people from doing like 7 days a week, but just know that know that you're going to
Yeah.
need that day. It's like so many bands as well. They come off a tour, or we've only had we haven't done the same kind of lengthy stuff, but you come off a tour and you're ill. You just you hit your bed and then you go flat out. And I used to do it because I was manic anyway. I used to go all summer, and then I end up like just lying on a bed. I'm like, why am I can't move. I can't do anything because you've burned out that wick. But I think it's all comes from education and talking, and maybe someone that hears this today will go and just research a bit, and take half a day.
One thing I think the music industry, like the kind of actual infrastructure of it, kind of encourages people to burn themselves out, to work too hard, too long.
Yes. Yeah.
And kind of, I think there's a bit of fear instilled that if you don't hustle that extra day, someone else will.
And do you find, because again, I can't speak for it because I'm not like a successful musician, but I do you think that is true?
Yeah, I've
or do you think
experienced
it's something that's sold?
No,
it's
like 100% true.
It's very close.
Here's an example: a very well-established producer that doesn't have to prove themselves to anybody. I know for a fact has sat waiting for an invoice to be paid for 4 months, being told different bullshit every time, and eventually he sort of sent them a letter saying, look, if you have to pay me, I'm going to start charging interest, all that kind of stuff. And he spoke frankly to me and said, like, the thing is, I'm doing this, I'm just freaking out that I'm burning my bridges, I'm not going to get another job. So the fact that the industry knows that. The industry knows that the independent creative, they have power over them because they can dictate to them whether they get work or not. So if he gets a bad rep for being hard to work with because he wants to be paid fairly on time, that's a genuine fear. And it's the same with like, oh, we need this record done in 5 days, but we're only going to offer you this much money. It's all in that. It's all in that bundle. Like,
but they don't get it. They don't get how, like, having been and worked with you a few times, I really respect and understand your workflow because you need certain spacing and time to get things set up and chill out. You were very firm, fair. You were like, okay, let's get this set up first. No rush. And it got done. But if someone goes, okay, do it in 5 days, it's like, how are they going to get the same product?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the question.
I think the first time, like anything, it's like dating, isn't it? You're kind of getting a feel for someone. So there's kind of some boundaries in place. But the second time, the reason why it took me a while to find you, to text you, because I've renamed you Rick Rubin on my phone. Because we all kind of agreed that, like, I remember for a day you were sat like cross-legged on the sofa because we'd got ahead and we were happy with what we'd done. And we were just talking. We were talking about stuff. You were teaching us some stuff by way of just explaining a few things. It's like, oh, this is production too. This is producing too.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, in a normal office job, 9 to 5, you can take an hour for lunch. We don't take an hour for lunch at the studio. We work for it all. So having an hour just sat having a chat is lunch break. Like, that's how I see it. Like, you're going to get better out of me. You're going to get better out of the people that work there if they feel valued and want to have a conversation with you, and you're not treated as like the other side of the glass. And we've just had a very strange experience with someone in the studio that kept referring to Kurt as engineer.
Wow.
It's just dehumanizing. You know the guy's name.
I think it says a lot about them.
Yeah, it does. It says everything about them, and it also says that they're not welcome back to the studio. Like,
they're not adhering to the COVID procedures, I believe.
They're not adhering to the human procedure of not being a dickhead.
But that's the thing, is like, there are so many cliches, but the people that are uber successful, they're nice people. They're wonderful people. But you sadly get those people that have climbed high enough on the backs of others, and they are arsewipes. Are we allowed to swear? I just did.
Yeah, of course you are.
Cool.
Every experience I've had with an elite level engineer or producer has been positive, because at the core of this, you have to be able to communicate with people. It doesn't mean they're all the same. They're all like super chatty, super friendly, but you get a vibe that they're going to listen to you. I made a record for a band called Puppy that got mixed by like an elite level producer.
Yes.
An elite level mixer, and my previous experiences had been very much like, oh, this is anxiety. Why aren't I mixing it? Am I not good enough? But in this instance, it's like he was basically like, hey, this sounds wicked. The production's so good. I basically don't have to do anything. I'm just having a great time working with this production. And immediately I'm like, I love it. Like, this is great. First mix comes back. This is cool. Yeah.
That's it. And I find as well, like, I don't know, because again, working online, not in the same capacity at all for you, but when I'm working on Fiverr and someone makes me sweat for 5 days for what would be considered a small amount.
Yeah, for sure.
Then there's some people that send me tracks that I'm actually like, wow, this is great. And I say to them, like he said, thank you for sending me this. I know exactly what I want. And I'm really enjoying this. And they get their products quickly. They get them at high quality, and then we talk afterwards and we work again together.
I often have the fear when I make these podcasts and we kind of start talking about the like issues faced by people in the industry, that I basically am sitting here like throwing shade at every like part of the industry. But the reality is, what I'm trying to say is, everyone that treats everyone well has a great experience.
Yeah,
like,
simple.
Like at every level. For example, working with a record label, I won't name them, but they were so fucking good. They were so nice to me. They treated me like a human. They were communicative. They paid me on time. They fucking sent me a present at the end of it. So sent me a box of beers and stuff.
No, that was the Illuminati, mate. That was not a record label.
I mean, that wasn't hard for them to do it. Even if they weren't that happy, it wouldn't have been. It's not hard to be like, thanks for your work on it. Like, and
that's the thing.
That's the first time anyone's done that. And
that should be the
default,
though, right?
You know, like, I'm not saying I need gifts and presents. I don't need to be showered with like praise, but just being
treated
to
the ranch, yeah,
just being treated like a human. And you know, you feel the same. Like if someone gives you positive feedback on your writing, you're going to want to do a great job for them if they come back. You're going to probably cut them a better deal if they come back. And
but because the thing is that, like you just said, is that you have that professional kind of standard that even if someone's an absolute C-bomb, you are working for yourself, so it'd be that level of quality. But yeah, if someone's cool to you, you're like, oh, actually, I will spend a bit of time doing that extra thing.
Yeah.
Or, I actually had this idea that I was going to keep up. I'll put it in, see what they think. Because
that particular label got in touch last week to ask me to do a mix for them, and I guarantee it's going to be a cheaper rate than it would be if someone else asked me, because
there you go.
They were good to me. They like me. I want to get this relationship going long term because I like working with them.
But that's the thing, is like we said, if you can see something working long term, you lower the walls a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Let people in because they're going to come back, and I'll send you the fee for this podcast afterwards, right?
Well, we basically skipped the question bit. We'll do a few questions now, but
I love them, mate.
So, as part of Maggie Cassidy, you've actually worked with a couple of different producers, kind of like one after the other.
Yes, many.
What do you find is the value in doing that? Have you found it to be a valuable experience, getting new experiences, or has it helped you be like, you know what, I like this method and this is the method I'm going to stick with moving forward?
Yes. So you kind of, in a way, I think because you know me a little bit, you've answered it there. Like, we went through producers because we didn't know what we were looking for at the start, and then we found guys like you, and we found guys like Seb, who you walk in and there's this beautiful calm and control, and you kind of have this back catalogue where you know what they've done, but they don't push it in your face. Like we're saying, they're not saying like, oh, you're talking to me. But I come in with you. But at the same time, because you can get people like that who aren't very good, but then what you produce in the short speed of time that you produce it, that's what brings us back, because there's this real calm and there's a real quality to what you and Seb do that it means we don't have to worry, because we've had horror stories, and I won't name them because it wasn't anyone's really their fault, but the whole experience was horrific, from getting there, parking, everyone's interactions, that because the product was just not there. And I was doing extra days traveling in and horrible hot vocal booths. And I was like, this shouldn't be like this. It's that kind of like, you're committed to a task, so you do it, but then you think, it shouldn't be like this. But what we've learned from going to new producers is, I think, techniques, and weirdly, you don't get to work under the red light that often. Like, everyone has their own production equipment at home, but working with a producer like yourself or like daily, or again, like Seb, you guys have a really professional, skilled, and empathetic approach to vocal recording that I've found has brought me along in jumps. And I think working with you the first time was probably the first time that I felt someone was kind of behind me rather than guiding me. Because I had a lot to learn, like especially having known that you've recorded guys like Will from Creeper that has this beautiful kind of dramatic range and skill. And we talked about it when I first came, because I was kind of, I'm not great with that kind of thing. And then working with you and then working with you again and then working with Seb, it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then you rip and you give your best stuff. So it's kind of what you're saying is, as a good producer, you bring out better product as well in your clients, I think. And that's maybe what we've learned.
Cool. I'll let it out, but what was that studio that was a nightmare experience? I'm sure we've talked about this before, but I've certainly said it on the podcast, like, I've been someone's disaster session before. It happens.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It happens. Like, you can't possibly have 100% hit rate with making people happy and making them love their work. Like, you can have...
Especially creatively.
Yeah, you can have, like, a difference of opinion. You can have a difference of personality. We were talking about one band that I've worked with recently, kind of, they worked with me and then they worked with someone else. And I kind of... like sort of, so you cheated on me kind of thing, as a little bit of banter. Like, what was it like? And they kind of said the engineer, the producer was so nice, super cool dude. Just didn't sound like we wanted it to. We went for a beer at the end, and he said, "Go back to the other guy because he's done it better."
Jeez.
And that, sometimes you have those conversations, and that's just. I mean, I've definitely been in those shoes before. I've worked with someone. I've been like, you know what? It's like when you said about working with Seb. I was like, that's gonna go really, really well. Yeah, there's the Venn diagram of bands and producers. Like, there's a massive crossover between you and Seb, and I hold him in high esteem. My experience of talking to him is he's a fucking nice guy, and
he's a beautiful person. Yeah, like yourself.
His work is high quality, without a doubt. I mean, we have very different ethos and very different results, but that doesn't mean we don't kind of, like, I'm sure, hopefully he doesn't think I'm totally shit, but, my experience of his stuff has been that he's really, really good at it.
But can I say as well, because I wasn't sure, again, it's kind of like, it is a sensitive thing, but I really wanted to bring up the fact that we worked with you and had such a great time and learned so much. But at the same time, even when something goes so well, like you said, we're like, well, there's this, in the same way we came to you to learn and to grow and try something different. We've risked before and it's gone wrong, and we risked, and then it's gone, like with Seb. And I just think you were so, I don't know, you were so humble and aware, and there was never a sense of ego, that you came and spoke to me when we left, and you were genuinely able and interested to hear why we wanted to go with someone else. And as soon as we mentioned his name, which I think we shouldn't have, we accidentally blurted out something at the back, like probably Tom said it. But as soon as you heard it, there wasn't even like a registration of like, what? It was like, oh, cool, I know Seb, I've spoken to him. And I think, like, you love someone, let him go.
I mean, it's a very small community and everyone kind of knows each other. There's experiences where I've been like gutted, and there's experiences where I've been, I guess at one extreme it probably would be you guys, where I can sort of objectively go, that's going to work really well. Like, there's something that I can't offer you guys that he can, in the same way that I could offer something he couldn't to someone else, like that. That's like, I can totally objectively see that. But I've had other experiences where it's been like, oh shit, really? You're dumping me for X? Or like, oh, how could you do that to me? Then I get to write another song out of it. So.
I had a stroke for you, and you got.
Yeah, well, there's times if you feel like you've put your life and soul and heart in something, you've worked extra, you've done all the, you've really put the extra miles, and then they're like, yeah, we're going to do our next record with someone else. Like, ouch.
But that's the thing, is like without conversation, because I don't know, I feel like, because again, I've had orders as well where you just try, and at the end they're like, oh, this is just not what I want. Yeah. You go, what?
You just say, yeah, it's gutting, but you kind of learn from it and move on. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think with you though, like, I have to say, like, I wanted to kind of make sure that it was properly communicated, because the way in which you handled it was so encouraging and professional. It was kind of like, instead of trying to guide or control or have something over someone, it was very much like, in the same way you guys were behind me when I was writing and behind me when I was recording. It was like, yeah, go and do it. I think it'll work really well. And then that today is an example that the communication line is always open, because I know there's stuff that you do really well, and actually, like, Tom as well, he's been in contact with you and stuff about things. And I just love that, because there doesn't need to be a kind of hate-ex relationship.
No, I think if it, like I kind of said earlier, if everyone treats everyone with respect, and that everything works fine. And I think that's, if I say that stuff and then someone treats me with respect but does something I don't agree with, and then I kick off about it, then I'm full of shit. So I think it's important that I kind of put my money where my mouth is and kind of act how I would want to be treated.
But you do that, you kind of embody that, because, like, in our heads as well, like, there's always that, again, this is kind of airing dirty laundry and stuff, but there's always a sense of, when we work with a different producer, what will they bring? Like, will they have this and this and this? And it's kind of like talking about Fight Club, you shouldn't really, but at the same time, with you, the ranch for us is always an option, because we know exactly,
and you're
quality.
Always welcome, and that's how it should go. I mean,
this is the reunion.
as an artist in my past, I've worked with different producers, so I do have that kind of experience. And
exactly.
I certainly worked with a producer that I just didn't gel with at all, and I worked with one that I really did. And maybe 10 years on, 15 years on, I can actually listen back and be like, you know what, the guy I didn't like actually did a better job.
It's better, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd still every time go to this guy, because the experience was good. And
because we only get so many records that you make, like, we talk about it as a band, like, who knows what's going to happen. That could have been it, or this next one might be it, or we might not make the next one because the whole world gets swallowed up, but it's not that bad.
Or there's a second wave, and So we'll have to wrap up very soon, but I want you to give you the opportunity to ask me at least one question before, as this is supposed to be a Q&A.
Three things in your career that you're really grateful happened, even if they weren't necessarily positive.
Oh, okay. So I remember forming a new band and booking a band practice and meeting a guy called Tim Betts, who ran a practice room. And I just had a chat with him after our first rehearsal, being like, hey, what's that room used for? Nothing. How about I put a studio in there? And my relationship with him, although I don't speak to him as much as I'd like to now, for context, Tim doesn't just run a practice room, he's also part of the Joiners in Southampton, which is like the legendary venue. And he's been instrumental in securing that venue's existence. So he's all round a local legend and hero, and you won't find many people that have got a bad word to say about Tim Betts. He's just a great guy. So meeting Tim and forming a relationship with him is definitely something I'm thankful for. Without going all Oscars, I've been supported by my family as I've needed it.
Talk about him though, because that's something as well that's really important.
Oh, like, we kind of had a chat. Me and my friends the other day kind of had a chat where they were talking about how their parents had expectations for them and what they wanted them to do and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And mine really just very free range from about 14. Just figure out what you want to do and have a go at it. And if it doesn't work, figure out what you're going to do after that. That was very much the approach. My dad worked in big business. And sort of at age 10, 11, 12, I started having like, oh, am I expected to have that? Is that the lifestyle I'm going to have? And no, never had any pressure on it. In fact, if I would go to them and say, this is what I want to do, my dad would still, now my family would still be like, well, what can we do to help, kind of thing. It's
that open home policy, isn't it?
Very nurturing and supportive. And that is something I'm, will be thankful for forever. And I realise that's a privilege that not everyone has, so kind of got to check my privilege a little bit with that stuff. And then a third thing that I'm thankful for, well, I'll tell you, one of the shout-out is Peter Miles. So we both know Peter.
I love him.
Both had experiences with him. But at the time, I was really figuring out what I could do and what I, like wanting to be a producer rather than someone with a quite shitty little studio. Pete basically lived on the same road as me. He lived 400 meters down the road, 200 meters down the road. Yeah.
I thought he was born in the mountains.
Oh yeah, he came down from the mountain. He came out of the woods for a while and lived in Southampton at a place called the Homestead, which is this kind of like, in the 70s it would have been a hippie commune, but it was 2004, so it was, it was a big shared house, but he would go and record wherever they wanted to and then work from home for the rest of it. So I got to know Peter, and he was a really great supportive friend and trying to be analytical, a wonderful resource for me, because he would quite often be like, well, this is what I'm hearing that's not working in your mix, try this. And he was the only person I had in my life that would do that, other than Google, other than why does my mix suck kind of thing. And so Pete really helped me out on that stuff, and kind of pointed me in the direction I wanted to go. And we actually had a chat yesterday for the first time since lockdown. We had a chat just before lockdown, and a little catch up, and it's nice, 15 years later or 10 years later, or whatever it is, we're still, even though we don't see each other or chat to each other as much now, he lives in the wilds of Devon. We still got a great relationship, and we're still kind of, I don't know, those three people, if you want, my family, Tim Betts, Peter Mars, have been sort of like fundamental to me developing my career. So big love to them, shout out to them, thanks for your love and support. Oscar, speech out.
No, but in all seriousness though, I think like that, those three there, if someone is young listening to this, that kind of highlights what you need, because you need to have that kind of, first of all, listen to that small voice to go, can I use that room? Meet Tim Betts. Having a family, like a lot of us do, I think, in the music industry, you don't need to be ashamed. Like everyone in the charts, their parents were already rich before they started doing music, pretty much. I've analysed it. And me, myself as well, like, I think all of us in the band have a certain level of comfort we're all grateful for, that allow us to do this. And then thirdly as well, like having someone that's doing the same thing as you, like if someone's listening to this, those are all such key points to have the drive, and don't give yourself a stroke, but have the drive to produce, to do anything. And it's very difficult though. So I think it's good that you can mention
I think those people, their influence on me has kind of helped shape how I treat people. So one of my biggest, proudest achievements of the last couple of years is not a record I made, but the fact that I've taken on staff. I actually can give someone a job in a recording studio. Christ, at 21 or whatever, I'd have bitten someone's arm off for that, and they don't really come up that often. So I feel like it's one. But
you've got the ability, and
I mean now I'm broke, so I'm gonna have to fire them pretty soon. Sorry if you're listening to this, Kurt and Dom. I'm really sorry about that.
They're all gone. But I think just having the awareness to go and know what was missing when I was young, because I go into schools and stuff, and I teach kids, even from the age of like 6 or 7, I teach them songwriting, and we start basic stuff from like, this is an earworm, this is how you create it, this is lyrics. And if someone had come into my school and taught me how to commercially write songs at 7 or 8 years old, that's the dream, and you're creating your own dream, I guess.
At my school, a
special thing.
A dude came in with like long hair that played guitar. And that explains me basically. It's like he was, I can't even remember the guy's name, but he'd come in once a week and be like, "Hey guys, I play rock guitar," and I was like, "That guy is the coolest!" Like proper like, "Ooh, I want to be like him."
But even though he was just crawled out of his mum's basement.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. But he was he was a great guy. I remember like I wanted to. We had to do like a school talent thing. So me and him and one other person, I can't think who it was, we did Alice in Chains' Man in the Box. Me at like age 12, and he was like next to me with this long hair, and I was like, yeah, this is sick.
But I bet you kind of carry part of him as like your spirit animal to keep going.
Yeah, maybe. It's the first time I thought about him in years, so I don't know.
No, he's been there all the time.
He's the voice. Like, put a guitar solo in it. It's that guy.
But I think it's great though that you do like reach back, because a lot of the people that we talked about today, that they don't reach back, they don't appreciate, and they don't treat people properly. So if anything of the message of today, because am I right in sometimes you guys talk about like paranormal stuff on this show?
Yes.
Oh, well answered. Love it.
I love the spooks.
It's funny because like Pete, our drummer, he texted me like, "Oh, heads up," because I looked at all your stuff and like, okay, I kind of get what this is. He goes, "Heads up, the last question's about."
Oh yeah.
I was like,
yeah. So the last question. I mean, you've queued me up perfectly. Jamie, have you ever seen a ghost, or do you have a ghostly tale to tell? No.
The thing is, I really hope I've done enough entertainment value for previous stuff, because I've got stories of ghosts. Like, the only thing like that's interested me is I'm a massive like Jason Butler fan, and also Lead Singer Syndrome has interviewed a few people, and they keep talking about this haunted venue. I think it's like one of the House of Blueses in like Middle America.
Yes,
with the pool and that shit I'd be well up for.
Yeah,
like, because we've been to some dodgy back venues, but if something was haunted, I'd be. Probably because I'm a non-believer, shall we say, as I cross my chest and throw holy water over my head. Like, I'd want to see what it's about. Because if there's so many people that do find it interesting and believe it, like, show me. I want to be part of it.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Given the opportunity to do a spooky thing, I absolutely would
like
do the
spooky
thing. Yeah, for sure. I'll try and fill the space with a spooky story. So talking about venues out in the middle of nowhere. Back in my old band days, we would do these crazy like 5-6 week tours, playing every shit little like no mark town in the country. And we played one it's a place called Galashiels, which is on the border between England and Scotland. Galashiels is a nice little town. We thought we were playing in Galashiels. We got there and we kind of met this guy, and he was like, right, I'll show you out to the venue. And it was a further like 20-minute drive into the countryside, where there was this like tin scout hut. Just in the middle. I can't make this clear enough. In the middle of nowhere, there was maybe 5 houses and a scout hut. It was so weird. So we, did our sound check, and he was a nice dude. He made everyone dinner and all this. This is a weird experience, but anyway.
Yeah.
Come 7:00, suddenly all these buses descend on the venue, and it's all these like. All the like surrounding villages of Galashiels, basically they do like a bus service and they dump all the kids at the show. It's like 150 people there. It's absolutely packed. But it was like 150 kids that haven't got out of their village all week, and they just want to go and rut in the field and drink WKD or whatever. But at the end of it, we were like, so where are we staying? He was like, oh, here, you're sleeping here tonight. So we had to sleep in the middle of nowhere in this like tin hut. And
people have probably died in there.
Yeah, what was that? Well, coming to the crux of the story, thinking it's going to be like a spooky, ghosty kind of thing. Got woken up in the middle of the night by a weird noise and looked up, and our drummer was sleepwalking around the the tin shed, like pure Blair Witch kind of thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've seen that. I'm
just
terrible for those kind of films.
Scared the fuck out of everyone. Right, I'm going to wrap up there, so I've got to get to the studio. But absolute pleasure chatting to you, my man. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much. And I mean everything I said. It's not for show.
No, lovely stuff. Well, keep safe and whatnot in future lockdowns. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon. This week's deep dive, I've chosen not just a song but an EP by a band called Grader. They are from Aberdeen, so topical. Just been put back into lockdown. I don't think it's got anything to do with the members of Grader, but you never know. So Grader were a band I was aware of. They were part of the kind of like UK hardcore circuit around the same time I was doing bands like The Parchers, who were from Glasgow, and Landscapes and so on and so forth. And they were brought to my attention by Will Gould. Again, topical, because obviously Cooper's second album is currently riding high in the charts. So it kind of led me to thinking about Grader tangentially, because it was through Will that I found out about Grader. This was a period, I think it's 2015, that we were sort of hanging out a lot together. And he excitedly one day told me about the kind of like monitor mixes for Grader's new EP that he had heard. I at the time was kind of hoping to record Grader because I thought their album before was really good, but he was kind of going on about how great they were, and we sat and listened to the whole EP, and the mix was, not to throw shade on anyone, but I think it was like a monitor mix, but the songs were really fucking good, and they kind of shone through no matter what, you know. So the thing that jumped out to me was Liam's vocal, which had evolved from your kind of like hardcore frontman vocal to this kind of like drunk Tom Waits doing hardcore thing, which just spoke to me at a deep level. I just thought it was fantastic, but not just his kind of vocal, but the lyrics. There's a couple of bits where I remember sitting with Will and just we were kind of like both spine tingling over some of the lyrics, and they're just so good. Some kind of religious stuff in there, which is always kind of ripe for the kind of profound lyric stakes. But overall, I just really liked it. So what I got called in to do eventually was to do the mix, and some of it was this is a point where maybe if it came to me now, I might be even more equipped to kind of like do the kind of fireman job and rescue what was needed. But there was lots of things like mono. The stereo overheads were actually mono files, so it's kind of like having to work with not the best recordings, but there was quite a few technical problems as well. Some of the guitar prints didn't work, and some of them had effects printed on them and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a bit of a struggle to kind of like meld into the kind of shape they wanted.
I'll tend to you, I'll tend to you. It's just this phase I'm going through. My talk to God, but when I do, I'll tend to you. I'll tend to you, I'll tend to you.
All things considered, I think it came out really well. And it's one of those things that, based on the songs, I think this should have been a much bigger release. It just came out for free, but this was at the time they'd just toured with Funeral for a Friend, so their kind of like profile, their star had never really been higher. They're kind of this underground band from Aberdeen that suddenly got put into a nationwide tour with Funeral for a Friend, who still had big cachet at the time. And yeah, they had like advocates for them, but they never really got anywhere much beyond this, despite the fact that I think this is a really stellar EP. What happened next, as far as I know, I don't know what Liam does now, but Louis from the band is now Louis from Cold Years. That kind of relationship has carried on to the point where I kind of work with Cold Years all the time now, which is great. Good for me. In the background, you've heard chunks of the EP Holy by Grader. I'm now going to leave us with the final song on the EP, Wilt, which actually features Will Gould as well. So it's a great EP. It's up on their Bandcamp still, so have a listen, enjoy, and as always, any feedback's always welcome.